The quantum forge's blue light pulsed through the reinforced windows of Deep Space Research Station Omega, casting ethereal shadows across Dr. Sarah Chen's face as she stared at her holoscreen in disbelief. The simulation had worked. After 15 years of research, countless failures, and 3 nearly career-ending setbacks, she had finally proven that matter could be reconstructed at the quantum level using zero-point energy. "Run it again," she whispered to the AI assistant, her voice trembling. The holographic display flickered, showing the same remarkable result: a perfect atomic reconstruction of a complex titanium alloy, assembled from raw energy in microseconds. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just manufacturing. It was creation itself, manipulated at the most fundamental level of reality. Humanity had just discovered how to forge matter from energy with perfect precision, and the universe would never be the same. Behind her, Admiral James Morrison cleared his throat. She hadn't even heard him enter the lab. "Dr. Chen, I assume by your expression that Project Prometheus has yielded results." Sarah turned, facing the tall, weathered officer who had championed her research when everyone else called it impossible. "It works, Admiral. The quantum forge, it actually works. We can create anything. Ships, stations, weapons. Atom by atom, perfectly formed. No assembly required. No supply chains. Just pure energy transformed into matter exactly as we design it." The Admiral's usually stoic face broke into a rare smile. "Show me." Sarah's fingers danced across the holographic interface, initializing the prototype quantum forge. The device itself was deceptively small, barely larger than a shipping container, but its potential was infinite. A sphere of blue energy formed in the center of the testing chamber, swirling like a miniature galaxy. "Watch the molecular scanner," Sarah instructed, pointing to another display. "I'm going to recreate a sample of our new metamaterial hull plating." The energy sphere pulsed, and within seconds, a gleaming plate of metal materialized in the chamber. The scanner showed its structure was perfect down to the last atom, stronger than traditional hull plating and capable of self-repair through the same quantum principles that created it. "My God," Morrison breathed, studying the readings. "And you can scale this up." Sarah nodded, pulling up another simulation. "With enough power, we could build an entire ship. Not just build it. We could create a vessel capable of repairing and even replicating itself using the same technology. A ship that could harvest energy from stars themselves to fuel its quantum forge." Morrison's eyes narrowed as he processed the implications. A self-replicating warship that never needs a shipyard or supply lines. "Do you realize what this means for humanity's position in the galaxy?" "It means we're no longer dependent on anyone else," Sarah replied. "No more trading technology for resources. No more bowing to alien powers because they control vital shipping lanes or manufacturing hubs." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "But sir, this technology, it's going to change everything. The balance of power will shift dramatically," Morrison finished, "which is precisely why we need to move quickly. The Arcturus Accords require us to share all major technological breakthroughs with the Galactic Council. Once this gets out, every species in the galaxy will want it." Sarah completed his thought. "And not all of them will ask nicely." Morrison straightened his uniform. "Dr. Chen, I'm hereby initiating Phase 2 of Project Prometheus. You have 6 months to scale this technology up to ship size. I'll assign you whatever resources you need. We need to have a working prototype before word of this discovery leaks out." Sarah's mind raced with the technical challenges ahead: power requirements, quantum field stability at larger scales, AI systems to manage the complexity of ship-size materialization. But she also felt a surge of excitement. This was humanity's chance to secure its place among the stars. "One more thing," Morrison added, heading for the door. "We've detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Long-range scans suggest we might have watchers. We need this ship, Doctor. Sooner rather than later." As the Admiral left, Sarah turned back to her workstation, already plotting out the next phase of development. In the quantum-forged chamber, the test plate still gleamed, a symbol of humanity's next great leap forward. They had 6 months to create something unprecedented, a ship that could change the course of human history. And somewhere in the darkness beyond Neptune, unknown eyes were watching, waiting to see what humanity would do with their newfound power. Sarah pulled up the preliminary designs for what would become humanity's first quantum-forge battleship. She had named it the Phoenix, humanity's rise from the ashes of technological dependence. As she began the calculations for scaling up the quantum forge, a message flashed across her screen. Unauthorized transmission detected. The race was already beginning, and they couldn't afford to lose. 3 months into Project Dawn, the orbital construction facility above Mars buzzed with an intensity that made the old Apollo program look like a school science fair. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the primary control room, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time quantum field calculations as the first full-scale test approached. Power systems at 98%, called out Dr. Raj Patel, her lead power systems engineer. Quantum matrix stabilizing at nominal levels. His dark eyes never left his console, fingers moving across the controls with practiced precision. The Phoenix's quantum forge core, a scaled-up version of Sarah's original prototype, dominated the massive construction bay. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like a miniature star contained within layers of electromagnetic fields and exotic matter barriers. The device that would either revolutionize human spaceflight or create a very expensive light show. "We've got movement on the long-range sensors," Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez announced from her security station. 3 vessels just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. Signatures matched Drachnid scout ships. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. The Drachnids were supposed to be allies, but their recent behavior had grown increasingly aggressive. Their massive empire had dominated galactic trade routes for centuries, and they weren't known for sharing power gracefully. "They're earlier than expected," Admiral Morrison muttered, stepping up beside her. "Status of the stealth systems." "Holding for now," Rodriguez replied. "But they're definitely scanning this sector. They know something's happening out here." Sarah turned to Morrison. "We can't wait any longer. The quantum matrix is stable enough for a test run. If we don't try now, we might not get another chance before they find us." The Admiral studied the readouts for a long moment before nodding. "Do it, but be ready to shut it down if anything, and I mean anything, looks wrong." Sarah took a deep breath and opened the project-wide comm channel. "All stations, this is Dr. Chen. Initialized primary sequence for Quantum Forge Test 1. This is not a drill." The massive chamber hummed to life as power began flowing into the Quantum Forge core. On her displays, Sarah watched the energy patterns form exactly as they had in her simulations. But this was different. They were attempting to create something orders of magnitude larger than anything tested before. "Quantum field stabilizing," Raj reported. "Beginning matter conversion sequence." In the construction bay, the air itself seemed to shimmer as the quantum forge began its work. Piece by piece, atom by atom, the Phoenix started taking shape. First the central hull, then the outer frames, each component materializing from pure energy in perfect formation. "Power consumption higher than projected," Raj warned. "We're pushing the reactors to 95%. Sarah's fingers flew across her console, adjusting the quantum field parameters. "Compensating. Raj, redirect power from the outer rings. Focus everything on maintaining core stability." The Phoenix continued growing, its sleek form emerging like a ghost ship materializing from quantum mist. Its hull gleamed with the characteristic iridescence of quantum-forged materials, marking it as something entirely new in the universe. "Drachnid vessels changing course," Rodriguez announced. "They're heading this way. ETA 40 minutes. Morrison's voice was tight. "How long until completion?" 35 minutes if everything holds," Sarah replied, not taking her eyes off the readings. But that's assuming nothing goes wrong. Something went wrong. A power surge ripped through the quantum matrix, sending cascading alerts across every display. The Phoenix's partially formed hull flickered like a mirage in the desert. Matrix destabilizing. Raj shouted, "We're losing containment in sectors 3 through 7. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. The calculations, the simulations, they checked everything 100 times. Then she saw it. The power fluctuations weren't random. They formed a pattern. "Someone's hacking our systems," she announced. "The power surges are coordinated. Lieutenant Rodriguez, trace that signal." Rodriguez's fingers blurred across her console. Signal origin. It's coming from inside the facility. Morrison was already moving. Security teams to all critical areas. Find that breach. But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She'd spotted something in the quantum field readings, a harmonic pattern she'd seen in her earliest experiments. Her fingers moved almost on their own, implementing a crazy idea that might save the project or tear a hole in space-time. "Raj, when I give the word, I need you to pulse all reactors at maximum output for exactly 2.4 seconds. That could blow the entire power grid. It's either that or we lose everything. Ready. Now." The facility's lights dimmed as every bit of power surged into the quantum forge. For a moment, it seemed like the entire structure would tear itself apart. Then the quantum field stabilized, snapping back into perfect alignment. The Phoenix's materialization accelerated, components forming faster than the eye could follow. Sarah's modification had worked. They'd turned the power surge into a catalyst for the quantum forge process. "Drachnid ships, 20 minutes out," Rodriguez reported. "Hull integrity at 80% and rising," Raj added. "Whatever you did, Doctor, it's working." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the best way to deal with chaos is to embrace it. Status of the quantum core. Operating beyond projected specifications, we're actually seeing improved efficiency across all systems. The Phoenix's bridge materialized last, its quantum-forged crystalline viewport refracting the light from Mars below. As the final components snapped into place, a wave of cheers erupted across the control room. They'd done it. Humanity had its first quantum-forge battleship. "Get me a full systems check," Morrison ordered. "We need to know if she's space-worthy before our visitors arrive." Sarah studied the readings with a mixture of pride and concern. The Phoenix was more than they'd hoped for. The forced acceleration of the quantum forge process had created something even more sophisticated than their original designs. But there was something else in the data, something that suggested their security breach was more than simple industrial espionage. The pattern of the hack looked familiar, too familiar. As the Phoenix hung there, gleaming in the Martian light, Sarah wondered if they'd just started something far bigger than a new arms race. The quantum forge technology wasn't just changing shipbuilding, it was changing the rules of reality itself. And someone out there already knew how to manipulate those rules. The Drachnid ships arrived with perfect diplomatic timing. Just close enough to be threatening, just far enough to claim peaceful intentions. Their crystalline vessels took up position near Deimos, their hull designs making them look like abstract sculptures rather than warships. From the Phoenix's newly materialized bridge, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the alien ships with growing unease. The quantum forge's success had been miraculous, but they hadn't had time to properly test any of the ship's systems. They were flying blind with experimental technology, while 3 of the most advanced vessels in known space studied their every move. "They're hailing us," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from her temporary station. Most of the Phoenix's intended crew hadn't even set foot on board yet. Admiral Morrison, standing at the command station, nodded. "Put them through." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the impossibly elegant features of High Commander Lizara. Like all Drachnids, she appeared almost human at first glance, until you noticed the subtle crystalline patterns in her skin and the way her eyes refracted light like diamonds. "Admiral Morrison." Lizara's voice carried the musical quality typical of her species. "How interesting to find you conducting." exercises so far from Earth, particularly with technology that seems quite advanced for your current development level. Routine testing. High Commander, Morrison replied smoothly. I wasn't aware the Drachnid Empire had such interest in our internal affairs. Lizara's smile didn't reach her eyes. The Empire has interest in all matters that could affect galactic stability, particularly when we detect quantum-level anomalies consistent with restricted technologies. Sarah felt her blood run cold. The Drachnids shouldn't have been able to recognize quantum forge signatures. The technology was entirely new. Unless... Admiral, she whispered. The security breach. I think I know. A new alert cut through the tension on the bridge. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Rodriguez called out. 7. No, 12 vessels. Configuration unknown. The unknown ships emerged from hyperspace like black tears in reality. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them look like ship-sized holes in space. They moved with impossible grace, taking up attack positions around both the Phoenix and the Drachnid vessels. A new signal cut through all communication channels. The voice that emerged was neither human nor Drachnid. It seemed to resonate directly in their minds. Children of Earth, servants of crystal, you play with forces beyond your understanding. The Quantum Directorate has monitored your experiments with growing concern. This sector is now under our jurisdiction. Surrender your vessels and prepare for evaluation. On the view screen, even Lizara looked shaken. The Directorate is a myth, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Admiral. Sarah spoke up, her mind racing through calculations. The quantum forge. During the power surge, I detected patterns in the quantum field. They weren't random interference. They were observations. Someone was studying our technology while we built it. And now they've come to collect. Morrison finished grimly. He turned to Lizara. High Commander, it appears we have a common problem. The Drachnid leader's crystalline features hardened. The Empire does not recognize the authority of myths and shadows. Then perhaps, Morrison suggested, we should demonstrate that fact together. Before Lizara could respond, the Directorate ships opened fire. Their weapons weren't conventional energy beams or projectiles. They fired distortions in space itself, attempting to tear apart their targets at the quantum level. The Phoenix's quantum-forged hull absorbed the first hits, its structure automatically repairing itself as designed. The Drachnid ship's crystalline shields flared with rainbow light as they deflected the attacks. All stations, battle positions. Morrison ordered. Dr. Chen, is the quantum forge core combat ready? Sarah was already moving to the engineering station, her fingers flying across the controls. Theoretically, yes. But we've never tested. Time to test now. Morrison cut her off. Lizara, if you're watching, we could use some of that famous Drachnid tactical coordination. The Drachnid commander's response was to bring her ships into formation alongside the Phoenix. Joint defense pattern, she announced. Though this temporary alliance does not change the Empire's interest in your quantum technology. Morrison actually smiled. Let's survive this first, then we can discuss technology sharing. The Directorate ships pressed their attack, their quantum weapons creating a web of distorted space around the Allied vessels. But as they fought, Sarah noticed something in the quantum readings, a pattern similar to the one that had helped them complete the Phoenix's construction. Admiral, she called out, I think I know how to beat them at their own game, but you're not going to like it. The Phoenix's first real battle was about to begin, and with it, the nature of space warfare would change forever. The only question was whether humanity's greatest technological achievement would survive its trial by fire. In the quantum realm between spaces, ancient powers stirred, watching to see how their children would handle the forces they had unleashed. The game was entering a new phase, and the stakes were higher than anyone aboard those ships could imagine. Your plan is insane, Admiral Morrison stated flatly as Dr. Chen explained her idea. Around them, the Phoenix shuddered under another quantum strike from the Directorate ships. The quantum forge doesn't just create matter, Sarah explained, her fingers dancing across the engineering console. It manipulates the fundamental forces of reality. Their weapons work on the same principle. If we can reverse the Forge's polarity, we could turn their own quantum distortions against them. Lizara finished through the comm channel. The Drachnid commander's ships had formed a protective ring around the Phoenix, their crystalline shields barely holding against the assault. Or tear a hole in space-time that swallows the entire solar system. Raj added grimly from his station. Another hit rocked the ship. Quantum hull integrity at 60%. Rodriguez called out, "We can't take much more of this." Sarah met Morrison's eyes. "Admiral, this ship was designed to rewrite the rules." "Let me prove it." Morrison studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Do it. Lysara, pull your ships back. Whatever happens next, well, it's been an honor." The Drachnid commander's crystalline features softened slightly. "The honor is mutual, Admiral. Though I still expect a full briefing on your quantum technology if we survive." Sarah was already deep in the Phoenix's systems, reconfiguring the quantum forge core. The mathematics behind what she was attempting would have won her a dozen Nobel Prizes in peacetime. In war, she just hoped it would keep them alive. "Raj, I need all power to the forge. Everything we've got." "What about life support?" "Won't matter if this doesn't work." "Rodriguez, get me a targeting solution on the lead directorate ship." The Phoenix's quantum core began to pulse with impossible colors as Sarah's modifications took effect. The ship's hull resonated in sympathy, creating patterns that hurt the eyes to look at. "They're concentrating their fire," Rodriguez warned. "Multiple quantum strikes incoming." Sarah's fingers flew across her console. "Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Raj, on my mark, initiate quantum field inversion." The directorate ship's attack hit like a hammer of distorted space. But this time, instead of attempting to resist the quantum distortions, the Phoenix absorbed them. Sarah's modifications had turned the entire ship into a quantum lens, focusing and redirecting the energy. Field inversion in 3, 2, 1. Now. For a moment, reality seemed to hold its breath. Then the Phoenix released its stored quantum energy, amplified and reshaped by the forge core. The beam that emerged wasn't a weapon in any conventional sense. It was a reorganization of reality itself. The lead directorate ship vanished, not in an explosion or a flash of light, but in a ripple of probability. One moment it was there, the next it had never existed. "By the crystal throne," Lizara whispered. "What did you do?" "Quantum probability manipulation," Sarah explained, her voice tight with concentration. "We didn't destroy their ship. We just shifted it to a timeline where it was never built." The remaining directorate vessels reacted with visible panic, their perfect formation breaking apart. 2 more tried to fire on the Phoenix, but Sarah was ready. The quantum forge caught their attacks and reflected them back, erasing 2 more ships from existence. "They're retreating," Rodriguez announced as the surviving directorate vessels began jumping to FTL. But Sarah wasn't celebrating. Her console was showing readings that made her blood run cold. "Admiral, the quantum forge core is destabilizing. The power requirements for what we just did. We got maybe 10 minutes before it goes critical." Morrison turned to Lizara's image on the screen. "High Commander, I suggest you get your ships clear. We need to get the Phoenix to minimum safe distance from any inhabited bodies." "And then what?" Raj asked. Sarah's hands were already moving across the controls. "Then we do what this ship was designed to do. We rewrite the rules one more time." As the Drachnid ships pulled back and Mars grew distant behind them, Sarah began the most dangerous calculations of her career. The quantum forge had shown it could manipulate reality itself. Now they just had to survive their own creation. The clock was ticking, and somewhere in the quantum void, the directorate was watching, learning, planning. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning of a new kind of warfare, where the laws of physics themselves were the battlefield. Quantum core breach in 7 minutes, Raj announced, his voice steady despite the situation. The Phoenix hurtled through space, putting distance between itself and any inhabited worlds. Sarah Chen had stripped off her jacket, sweat beading on her forehead as she worked. The Quantum Forge's containment chamber glowed with impossible colors, reality itself buckling around the destabilizing core. If this works, she explained to Morrison, we can use the core breach to our advantage. Instead of an explosion, we trigger a controlled quantum reconstruction of the ship itself. And if it doesn't work, then we create a quantum singularity that makes a supernova look like a firecracker. Morrison nodded grimly. Lieutenant Rodriguez, send the evacuation order. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Belay that, Sarah interrupted. We need every hand. What I'm attempting requires precise coordination. One mistake, and she didn't need to finish the thought. The crew remained at their stations, each understanding the stakes. On the main screen, Lazara's image appeared. The Drachnid ships maintained a safe distance, but hadn't left the system. Dr. Chen, our sensors indicate that the quantum distortions are increasing exponentially. Whatever you're planning. 5 minutes to breach. Raj cut in. Sarah's fingers danced across her console, implementing the most complex quantum equations ever attempted. The Directorate didn't understand what they were dealing with. She said, more to herself than anyone else. They saw the Quantum Forge as a weapon. But it's more than that. It's evolution. Warning alerts filled the bridge as the quantum core's containment began to fail. Reality itself seemed to waver around the ship, space and time becoming uncertain concepts. All stations, Sarah called out, prepare for quantum reconstruction sequence. Raj, on my mark. Divert all power to the forge. Even life support. Everything. For this to work, we need total commitment. She looked around the bridge, meeting each crew member's eyes. What we're about to attempt, it's never been done before. We're not just rebuilding the ship, we're ascending to a new level of existence. Morrison stepped forward. Whatever happens, it's been an honor serving with all of you. Lieutenant Rodriguez, send our telemetry data to Earth. They need to know what we discovered here, whatever the outcome. 3 minutes to breach. Sarah's modifications were ready. The Quantum Forge hummed with power, its energy patterns shifting from chaos toward a new kind of order. Raj, initiate the sequence. Everyone else, brace for, well, anything. The Phoenix's hull began to glow, not with heat, but with quantum possibility. Layer by layer, the ship began to transform. The quantum-forged materials weren't just repairing themselves, they were evolving, becoming something more than mere matter. 1 minute to breach. Sarah felt it first, a strange sensation like her consciousness was expanding. The quantum field wasn't just affecting the ship, it was changing them too. She could see the equations in her mind with perfect clarity now, understanding on a level that transcended normal human comprehension. Admiral, she whispered, I know what the Directorate was afraid of. They weren't trying to stop us from building weapons. They were trying to prevent us from becoming like them. The quantum core breach reached critical point, but instead of destruction, it triggered transformation. The Phoenix didn't explode. It transcended. The hull became a lattice of pure quantum energy, each atom existing in multiple states simultaneously. The crew found their consciousness linked through the quantum field, their understanding expanding beyond normal space-time. When the transformation finished, the Phoenix hung in space like a ghost ship made of crystallized probability. It was still recognizably a vessel, but now it was something more, a bridge between conventional reality and the quantum realm. Lysara's voice came through the comm, filled with awe. By all the stars, what have you become? Sarah, her mind now intertwined with the ship's quantum systems, smiled. We've become what humanity was always meant to be, pioneers of a new frontier. The quantum realm isn't just a weapon or a tool. It's the next step in our evolution. Morrison, similarly transformed, turned to her. Can we replicate this? Share it with others. We are the template. Sarah replied, "The Quantum Forge didn't just rebuild us. It created a blueprint for others to follow. Humanity won't just join the galactic community now. We'll help lead it into a new age." As the Phoenix orientated itself in its new existence, Sarah detected quantum signatures far out in space, the Directorate watching. But she wasn't afraid anymore. They had tried to prevent this evolution, fearing what humanity might become. Instead, they had catalyzed our ascension. The ship's quantum sensors detected signals from Earth, questions, concerns, excitement. The secret was out, and there would be no going back. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger universe, one where the laws of physics were suggestions rather than rules. "Send word to Earth," Morrison ordered. Tell them the Phoenix Project was a success. But warn them, this is just the beginning." In the quantum void between spaces, the Phoenix glowed like a beacon of possibility, a symbol of humanity's greatest leap forward. They had built a ship to defend Earth, but they had achieved something far greater. They had opened the door to humanity's next great adventure. The game had changed, and the galaxy would never be the same.